3D printing is a hobby, and only a hobbyist will use it. That's what I often said. I don't have time for another hobby. It looks cool, but how mass marketable is it really? These excuses no longer really work. With the latest wave of affordable, consumer-focused, and budget-friendly 3D printers, a wealth of quality of life improvements and an added robustness have been added that make printing something most anyone can do. I've recently had to print with a traditional 2D ink printer lately and was amazed to find that I struggled to get that machine to do its job far more than any work I'd put into using the longer LK4 X. Oh hey, that's what I'm reviewing. Would you look at that? What a great segue. The Longer LK4 X is Longer's latest FDM printer and their first foray into some more premium features that are only just now starting to show up in consumer and budget-friendly 3D printing offerings. From auto-leveling, dual fan coolers, magnetic, removable, and best of all, flexible build plates, to the simple nicety of auto-import settings into most popular slicers so you can be successfully printing day one and never stop, there's a wealth of greatness packed into this machine. Seriously, and I can't stress this enough. This is a game changer. I'll get into the details shortly on all sorts of features, speak on quality and more, but I wanted to start out by ensuring you understand how easy it is to print with this machine. In the past, I honestly did. I had a printer from another manufacturer and just could not get it to print well. If it finished at all, it was a mess with inconsistent and ugly results. I kept only a precious few prints from that machine. That and simply loading on the filament at one point broke the cheap plastic that it was made out of. Trust me, this one's better. So I went into the Longer LK4 X specifically looking at this from someone fairly new to FDM printing. As such, please excuse some rookie mistakes you veterans probably already see. I'm beginning to see them myself, and I'm already improving, in large part thanks to you guys. There's an amazing community around 3D printing with lots and lots of information should you need it. But honestly, I haven't needed it that much. These new features are a godsend, and I don't even check if my print is working at the start anymore. I have that much faith in this machine. Just click print and walk away. Done. Literally, that's what I do. Okay, so fun fact. The video you've been watching is recorded in my game room, but that's not where I print. I had to move the printer here to film. Problem, it was currently printing, as you can see. Turns out it was no problem at all. Click pause, unplug, pick it up and move, not by the build plate or crossbar on the Z-axis, more on that later. Set it down, plug it in, and it continues printing. The machining done on this printer is very nice, and I feel that's something many don't comment on it with these machines. The Longer LK4 X features some twist knobs to tighten the belts that move the build plate and print head, so it's super easy to keep that taut, and everything else from the wheels to the Z-axis lead screw was made extremely well. It just worked right out of the box. Speaking of which, a quick aside here. Don't fall for marketing specs. Many of the companies that make these printers are currently in a race to impress with numbers with little benefit to show for it. It kind of reminds me of cell phones back in the day when we started seeing stuff with like 80 megapixels and 100 plus megapixels for their cameras and stuff like that, when they didn't actually take better pictures because at some point the megapixels don't matter. Same thing here. As an example, you'll see a range from 8 to 100 plus point leveling checks across these different systems, and I promise you, no build plate needs so many points checked for warp. At that point, it's literally just wasting time. I feel the same way about dual versus single Z-axis lead screws. Sure, 2 is nice, but the only time that will benefit you is if the first one isn't built well. If it is, you'll see no difference in the build quality. It's just an extra lead screw. So I see Longer advertising their 16-point leveling system and their solidly built single lead screw, and I actually appreciate it. That leveling check is done every single time before printing for peace of mind, as you, the human, could accidentally move the build plate improperly, so the machine checks for that. And I can't imagine waiting for 100 plus useless point checks. Jumping down from my high horse, preaching moment, though it's really true. I've been quite impressed with how solid this machine is built. It allows it to print well and print consistently, and I'm very thankful for that, and I definitely recommend it for that reason above all others. If you're looking for a first 3D printer, I feel this is a really strong choice, especially if you aren't interested in adopting a whole new hobby. Speaking of that pause feature from before, I had it pause, but not for a power outage in the past. See, it can detect if the filament is empty and it'll pause the job until you add more filament. But the printer head that you need to add add the new filament into doesn't save its spot and doesn't move away from what it was printing either. So in the process of reloading the filament, which you have to put it into the print head, I moved slightly both the Z-axis and the build plate. So it started printing again just fine, but was now in the wrong spot. I'd love to see that improved in a future firmware update so it could know where it needs to go again to resume if it was moved. But power outage stop and start works like a charm. Build size is standard for the sub $300 printer offering. They're all pretty much the same. You'll see a little bit that are wider or narrower, taller or shorter, but overall they're generally about the same size. And the speed is, of course, adjustable, though the high end on this one is not as fast as some others. However, with speed comes lower quality. That's just how that range works. Different printers have different ranges, and all the ones here typically, if you print slow, it prints nicely. So it's up to you how strongly you feel about output versus quality. So far, my absolute favorite feature is the magnetic flex build plate. It makes removing prints so much easier than it used to be, and I don't think I could ever use a printer without one again. The dual cooler works very well, by the way. My old printer only had one on one side, and that caused all sorts of problems. I've tested this directly below my air conditioner air vent, and while I'm not using anything particularly sensitive material-wise, just regular PLA, I've seen zero issues from it. Often, an external airflow can cause even robust materials to ever so slightly diminish its build quality, but I've not noticed anything here. Out of the box, it comes with a 0.4mm nozzle, which is standard size again for these printers, and is a good starter size that allows you to print things you'd want to actually print for the most part, unless you're trying to specialize in something, in which case you can buy another nozzle. Okay, so it's obvious I'm a fan of the printer, and I am quite happy with it. Well, I was given this free to review for you today, and I do hope I helped to add some new information for you to consider by doing so. I will comment a bit on the price, or more, their marketing. As is often said, you get what you pay for, and while they are not the cheapest in this space, I feel their build quality and robustness definitely justifies it, but that's not something that's readily apparent to new consumers. Not all printers are built the same, even if they look the same. So hopefully they could express that better going forward. Oh, and Wi-Fi. Add a Wi-Fi chip on the next one longer. I want to talk to my printer and have it let me know when my prints are done. That'd be killer. Probably the only added feature I think they could add at this price point that I'd like to see. There's a link or two down in the description for you to check the printer out more and see if it's a purchase that's right for you, but do shop around a bit. I've noticed the price can fluctuate a fair bit, as is often the case with these printers, so even if I post them now, that might change after posting. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'd be glad to answer them for you, or perhaps you have a comment you'd like to make, let me know. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta get back to printing. I guess I did get a new hobby after all.